Hey, looks like we're live. Hey today everybody, welcome back to Live in the Wellness Garden. Sorry for the bit of a late start, bit of a crazy morning, and like for today's demonstration, there's a lot of things that need to be in order, and you'll see why. It's going to be worth it though. So what we're going to be doing today is we're going to be talking about leaf mold compost. And what is leaf mold compost? This is something that if you've been gardening for a while, you may have heard of. But basically all it is when you take the leaves of deciduous trees, that is trees that lose their leaves in the autumn, you put them together and you make them into this leaf-only compost called leaf mold. And so this compost is very special because rather than employing bacterial decomposition, which is what most composts employ, you have to get like the right ratio of greens to browns and water it and turn it. This whole process of optimizing the greens to browns ratio to a certain to a certain proportion and watering and turning it repeatedly encourages what is called bacterial decomposition, which is when single-celled bacteria are the primary decomposers of the material. This, not so. In this process, we are going to be employing fungal decomposition, that is fungi, so like mushrooms, mold, that kind of thing, to break down just these leaves into this amazing material. And the thing about leaf mold compost is much lower maintenance. You have to water it much less frequently. You don't really turn it at all, and it pretty much can just sit in your yard for a while until it's ready to use. The other thing about it though is that it actually takes a lot longer, at least 1 year, for the leaves to actually break down, because fungal decomposition is a much slower process. The metabolism of fungi is much slower than the metabolism of bacteria, and the material that is being broken down, at least, is higher in I guess those really complex carbohydrates that make up plant tissue, that is cellulose and lignin, and those take more energy to break down and more time. But the end result is incredible. It's absolutely incredible. It's some of the best compost you'll ever find. It is great for everything pretty much. But it is especially good for perennials and trees, any woody plant. Generally speaking, when it comes to the world of compost, whatever ingredients go in is going to be indicative of what kind of plant it's best for. So if you're using a lot of nutrient-dense material, it's going to be good for nutrient-hungry plants that grow rapidly and produce a high yield in a short time. So your vegetables, of course. But if you're employing lots of materials that break down more slowly, it's going to be good for perennials and trees that grow more slowly, and have woodier tissue. And so they prefer that more fungal soil, that more fungal compost. So by adding a fungal compost such as leaf mold to your soil, you're increasing the populations of fungi in your soil and making the soil itself more fungal. And so, great way to introduce all kinds of great fungi to your garden. And you can also do all kinds of other stuff with it. So aside from being used as a compost, you can use it as a mulch, you can use it as a base in potting soil, like if you're making a homemade potting soil mix, and you can make various preparations out of it. Some people will use it to make compost teas, but we're going to be demonstrating how to use it to make this probiotic for your soil called Jadam microbe solution. That is a part of the Jadam natural farming system, which was developed in Korea by Young-Sung Cho, who comes from a line of organic farmers. And they've been developing these really low-cost methods that are sort of like beyond organic farming. Oh, there's Fernando. He's got the tool that we're going to use today. Check it out. Our brand new leaf vacuum. How's it going, Fernando?
Going well.
Awesome. Yeah, so check this out. This is what we're going to be using today to mulch our leaves. And we'll talk about why we need this very soon, and we'll show you why. Yeah, this is very useful. If you have lots of leaves that fall in the autumn, get one. Get one. But yeah, anyways, so it's a part of this system called Jadam Organic Farming, which is a part of this, which is a component of this broader natural farming discipline that includes Korean natural farming. This is something that many people are starting to get turned on to nowadays in our corner of the world, because it involves making your own inputs. So it'll pretty much liberate you from dependence on your local hardware store, essentially. You're not, and your local nursery supply store. You're not going to have to go to buy fertilizers anymore. You're not going to have to go to buy pesticides, and even soil amendments, really. So it's also known as Jadam Ultra Low Cost Agriculture, and a lot of And like central to this methodology is collecting and collecting and producing your own microbial inoculants. That is these preparations that are used essentially as, again, soil probiotics to boost the microorganism population in your soil and increase the biodiversity of the microbes in your soil. And of course, as many of you may know, and as we have talked about, the foundation for healthy soil is a good microbial population, a strong soil food web, and that's what we're doing here. We're trying to improve that, and leaf mold is a great tool for that. So here is our new leaf mulcher. We're going to use this to process some of the leaves that we have into shredded leaves. So let's start opening this. Do you mind? We'll do a little unboxing here. And Joe is going to be joining us soon. He is helping us out in the kitchen right now, cook some potatoes, because we're going to need the potatoes for the Jadam microorganism solution. So here is our leaf vacuum. I love these things. They're awesome. And this one also looks like it doubles as a leaf blower. And so this is a corded one. You can see like we have this nice big tube to collect the leaves and shred them in a bag. And when we shred the leaves to make leaf mold, what it does is it increases the surface area to volume ratio of the leaves, and this encourages faster and more even decomposition. And you'll end up with a better product that is ready in a shorter amount of time, which is of course what we want, because leaf mold takes at least a year to make. So we'll assemble this really quickly. Yeah, I have one that is battery operated. The battery operated ones are cool, but they tend to lose battery life very quickly. And so since we're going to be needing to process quite a large number of leaves today, we don't want to rely on a battery operated one. Okay, so where does this go in? This looks like it goes in right here, if I know how the other one operates. Fan cover release, there we go. I'm not sure if I open this. Looks like you need to stick something in there. Okay, let's see. Yeah, looks like you need to stick something in there. Okay, so open it. I mean, I know how to use these otherwise. It's very straightforward. So, you see what the instructions say about how to do that? Otherwise, the bag goes in there, just like so. And we can use that to collect the leaves. And then we have this nice sling. And so, yeah, it looks like this will go right here. We hold it like so. Up to 250 miles an hour. Yep. So how does the fan cover come off? Looks like it's down there. Oh. Is that it? Yeah, so we need to get this off. Fan cover here. Okay, yeah, let's get a screwdriver or something. All right, this will work. So we're going to get this operational, and then we're going to show you guys how we use this to process some fallen leaves into the perfect material. There we go. Into the perfect material for our leaf mold compost. So we're also going to show you guys what finished leaf mold compost looks like. I've been making it at home for about 1.5 years now. All right, there we are. Wow, this thing looks like a beast. Look at this. I'm sure this one is very powerful. Where's the cord? Aha, here it is. Yeah, so let's get an extension cord set up. Yeah, you can set it up out of one of those outlets. Just be careful. So we'll give an update while Nellie's getting this set up. And do you mind just bringing the trash bag or that tote of leaves over there? That tote of leaves, that one right there, because those are the ones that need to be shredded. Anyways, check out our fig tree area. Remember when we pruned the fig trees last week, and remember how I was talking about the ground cover, the perennial ground cover that we're going to use to improve soil fertility and stimulate the accumulation of organic matter over time? Well, look at it now. Look at how much it's grown in. It looks absolutely fantastic. We can see that many of our grasses are germinating. We can see California poppies. We can see flax. We can see even some vegetables that happen to be in the soil. This is ruby red oric right here. We grew that last year and it looks like it volunteered, so we're gonna keep it. We have lupines, which are our nitrogen fixers, and the clover is also germinating. The clover is gonna be one of the perennial components, as is the yarrow. I saw a couple yarrows coming up. There's one. Yeah, so a lot of these perennials, like as usual, perennials typically take their time when they're getting established, but once they're established, they're here to stay. And so we're going to be able to cut this whole area back repeatedly and use it to feed the fig trees and all the plants around the fig trees every month or two. So this will allow us to grow fig trees and grow additional food in this area without having to import any nutrients, essentially. So we're not going to really have to use much in the way of fertilizers to keep these fig trees happy and to keep them productive, which is awesome. So that's what we're trying to do here in the Wellness Garden. And instead of relying on imported nutrients to maintain soil fertility, we're looking to increase soil fertility and therefore the productivity of our garden over time by constructing a self-sustaining ecosystem. All right, so let's go get the leaves. I'm going to reposition the camera. Let's do it right here. Lighting's not too great right here, unfortunately. Let's find a spot with better lighting. It's kind of tough with these big shade trees casting part shade. Okay, this is pretty good. This is perfect, actually. Check out our aquaponic systems over there. Our aquaponic system, our hydroponic system, looking great. This bed right here has cover crops. We're going to be doing a corn and potatoes based system in here, starting in the companion planting system, starting in the early spring. Really excited for that. And so there's our new leaf vacuum, and here are our leaves. And so it is going to get loud, so avert your ears if you need to. But these are very easy to operate. Alright, so all we got to do is plug this in. I'm thinking we might want to get a wood chipper at some point too. That would be cool. I have an electric wood chipper at home, but it's very wood chippers are extremely useful to have in your garden, even a small one. So, as I like to say, don't invest in inputs, invest in tools and knowledge. So we are going to use this, and it looks like the switch is right here. There we are. These do get clogged occasionally, like it's normal for that to happen. But it's no big deal. They're easy to unclog. That might have helped. So if it's clogged, you have to take off this part and just check the blade. And see, there's the blade right there. This is a metal blade. And you also want to check the inside of the bag. Doesn't seem to be clogged. Yeah, it looks like the clog is in here, inside the tube. Oh, hey, there's Joe. We got our potatoes.
Yep.
Awesome. Why don't we put those in a bucket of tap water to cool them off?
Yes.
How long did it take to microwave them?
It took about 5 minutes.
Perfect.
All right.
That's good to know in the future.
I'm gonna set these down right here.
Yeah, we'll see what the potatoes are for later when we talk about how to use leaf mold once you've made it. And yeah, it does take at least a year to make it, but it is worth it. Trust me.
You said tap water, right?
Yeah, just tap water,
Okay.
dechlorinated. Okay, let's see how to.
Thing is, yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, so let's get that back on. You just want to go a bit slower, I guess. want rocks, you don't want big twigs, and you don't want plastic in here. There we are. It is complete, and we have this nice bag full of processed leaves now. So we're gonna open this. I'm gonna empty this because there's a bunch of rocks.
Okay. All right.
And we're going to open this into the tote. And we'll see what we got. Let's see now. How does this open?
I think you just slide it off
Do you have to
to
slide
one
this off?
side. I think. There
Yep,
you
that's
go.
it. Okay.
Yeah.
So now we just lift it. Oh yeah, beautiful.
Wow.
Look at that, that's beautiful. So, like, once we get the leaves to this consistency, they're ideal for making leaf mold, compost. So, let's go get a bag ready to make the leaf mold compost.
They're cooling off right now.
Awesome, thank you very much, sir. Let's head over here.
All right.
Would you mind bringing the hose over here, Joe?
Yep, no problem.
Right there. All right. Let's move these out of the way. So, we have more leaf mold. There was another tote that had leaves. That one. You mind getting that now? Sure. So this is our starting material. All these leaves right here. All these shredded leaves. Like, if you have any leaves that fell off of the trees in your yard in the fall, use them to make this. In a year, you'll have this beautiful material. And I'm going to show you guys what it looks like right now. Some of the best stuff you can ever make for your garden. It is so rich in microbes. This is it. Right here. It's absolutely beautiful. Patience is a virtue, especially when it comes to gardening. And so now we can use this material as a starter for various preparations. And we'll get into that soon. But first I wanted to talk a little bit more about how to make a good leaf mold. So you can just use leaves by themselves, but if you really want to introduce a lot of microbial diversity, because in our gardens, in our soil, diversity is strength. So if we really want to have a robust and diverse population of soil food web organisms in our leaf mold that are locally adapted to our climate, what we can do is we can use some very mature soil from our gardens, or we could even go out into a wild area and collect some leaf mold soil from under the leaf litter layer, and maybe collect some bits of leaves and bits of bark from that area and introduce them to our leaf mold. And that's what I did initially when I started my leaf mold. You only really need to do that once, but that's going to introduce even more local biology. So make sure you're doing it in an area where you're allowed to do it, and make sure that you're careful about it. And I'll give you guys a couple tips on how to be careful and respectful to the ecosystem. So the area that you're after is that rich, dark, black topsoil right underneath the litter layer, right underneath the leaf litter layer. So what I would say is take maybe like a 16-ounce mason jar full of that, no more, and then when you're done, from several spots total, and then when you're done at each spot, cover the area back up with leaves. You do not want to leave the soil uncovered in a wilderness area, just like in our gardens. So that can make that could allow you to end up with an even better quality product than you would have had otherwise. So we have our shredded leaves now, and what I like to get is a trash bag. Where's the trash bag go? And we're gonna need something to poke holes in it. And as you can see, we have a lot of these, so we're gonna be making a lot of leaf mold. And so we are going to use this leaf mold as I start this completed leaf mold. In addition, there's some samples of soil from our garden in here. in here and for my garden at home. We brought way more than we need. So we're going to use this material to start the leaf mold. So let's begin filling up this bag full of leaves. If there's any trash, remove it. So can someone hold the bag open, please? And I'm going to add a little bit, and then we're going to water. I'm going to add a little bit of leaves. I'm going to add a bunch of handfuls of leaves. There's more trash. A little sprinkling of completed leaf mold. And this leaf mold already has these wild microbes and fungi that I was talking about. You can collect from a wild area. It already has some. I inoculated mine to begin with. So a bit more. And let's put a little bit of water. Yeah, water time. Just sprinkling. A little more. And see, once this bag starts to get full, we're going to need to poke drainage holes on the bottom. I'd say a bit more. Like a nice, decent watering, not too much. All right, there we go. Some more leaves. And we're going to fill this bag all the way up to the top. And then when we're done, we're going to put it in a nice shady spot for a whole year. Trust me, folks, this is worth it. And a little bit more leaves, and then we'll do water. All right, water time. How's our camera angle looking? So if you guys have any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat or visit the Ask a Master Gardener feature on our website. Oh, very cool. I think we're going to have just enough. And if we have any extras, we can use them as a mulch. Simple as that. So this is what I mean when I'm talking about fungi. Look at that mycelium. That's a fungus right there. And this is what we're employing to break down these leaves, rather than bacteria. We'll get some bacterial activity, but not a lot. We're mainly concerned with the fungi here. And you only need a little bit of mature leaf mold or wild collected leaf mold soil in order to start your leaf mold. You don't need a lot at all. Eventually, whatever microbes are present here are going to propagate themselves throughout the leaves and take over. That's what you want. Okay, now water. Perfect. Oh, did it get stuck? And we're going to need to save some of this to make our preparation that we're going to talk about. All right, go ahead. All right, let's dump the rest of these in. And watch that dust. It's a good thing that we're wearing masks. See, It's good to have masks to wear in the garden anyways if you're working with such material. All right, let's add some more.
Some more water?
Not yet. Okay, now more water. And so we can check the leaf mold next week to see if we're getting fungal colonization of the leaves, and probably within a week or two we will. We'll see various molds on the leaves. We'll see those spiderwebby looking things I showed you before. That's the mycelium of the fungus. That is actually the body of the fungus. And so we'll start to see various kinds of fungi on the leaves. And usually what tends to happen is as the leaf mold matures, at different stages of maturity, you'll get different fungal communities. And they'll all produce spores. And essentially when a fungus produces spores, that's kind of like the fungus going to seed and going dormant. Those are like the seeds of the fungus, essentially. Trash. So, keep an eye out for trash, always. So, when you have a mature leaf mold like this, you got more trash?
Is it?
Where? Right there?
Yeah, is that it?
Yes, good eye. The leaf mold will be teeming with these fungal spores. And not only are you introducing lots of organic matter to your soil, when you use leaf mold as a soil amendment or top dressing or whatever, you are introducing all of these fungal spores. And now those organisms are going to become a part of your soil food web in your garden. Okay, water?
Water.
Looks like we're going to have just enough to do a substantial leaf mold. I can see that there's water collecting at the bottom, so it's definitely going to be time to poke holes soon. Yeah, dusty.
A little bit.
My allergies tend to act up after I do this, so make sure you're wearing a good mask. All right, water.
Water.
And so when we're done poking the holes, we're going to water it in even more. But this is just to moisten them initially. There's a bit of soil for my garden. So you really don't need much of this stuff. Is our camera angle looking good still?
Yeah, it looks good.
Awesome. Hard to tell when you don't have a dedicated video. Alright, so that's going to be a pretty good leaf mold. I'm going to add a little bit more of this. Just mix it into the surface. Then let's wet it again one more time. Another light wetting. Alright, perfect. Now we're going to close up the bag for just a moment, and we need something to poke holes in it now. So that works. So I'd say let's turn it on the bottom first.
Okay.
And let's, thank you, Nelly. Let's just poke holes throughout. And this is going to allow for airflow through the bag because because this is an aerobic decomposition process, it requires oxygen in order to proceed correctly. So we need to make sure that we have plenty of air holes. And we also are going to want drainage holes on the bottom for water. Because we don't want water to collect at the bottom, then it'll start to putrefy. And then we have ruined the bottom of the leaf mold compost, or potentially all of it. So we don't want to wait all this time for our leaf mold to mature for nothing. So we need to make sure that we have plenty of air holes. Kind of wish that I had a sturdier trash bag than this, but it's okay. You also don't want to put your trash bag on a too rough of a surface. I mean, wood chips are all right, but you don't want to the trash bag to get punctured. Okay, now the bottom. And you'll start to see all kinds of insects and worms and other invertebrates colonizing the bag too. So this is a completed leaf mold bag. Let's move it into its final location. And then we are going to water it in. So I'm thinking right next to this bench right here is a great spot. So we're going to move this right here, this JLF. And we're going to talk about this next, because this is something that you can make with leaf mold. We're not going to open it. It'll probably smell like death right now. So right here, let's water it in some more. So while you're watering, Joe, I'm going to get the JMS ready.
Okay.
We have our, sorry about that.
You're good. You okay?
Yes, I'm all good. So we're going to take a brief intermission while I get ready for this. So now is a great time to ask questions. But we're going to be showing you how to use leaf mold next. I need to get a bamboo stake.
Go ahead. You're good.
I don't think you need to.
So when I'm talking about the importance of a soil food web and having lots of microbes in your soil, I always love to give the example of the dandelion that is growing out of the cracks in the sidewalk. Some people are like, wow, I can't even get my crops to grow in my garden. How can a dandelion grow out of the crack in the sidewalk? How is that even possible? Well, the answer is microbes. So most of the nutrients that plants require in a wild setting are delivered to the plants by microbes. So if we are going to farm nature's way, as Young-Sing Cho, the founder of Jadam, said, then we're going to need to employ microbes, and this is how we do that. So we utilize leaf mold. So you can use the leaf mold soil, the wild leaf mold soil that I mentioned earlier, or you can use leaf mold compost. I prefer to use leaf mold compost because it's more sustainable. We make this stuff pretty frequently in Jadam farming, so we don't want to be going out to the mountains constantly to collect soil. That's not very good for the environment. We're out into a wild area. So we're going to just use that to start our leaf mold compost, and then we're going to use leaf mold. So what I have here, and we'll talk about this first, you can see, this is called JLF. This is the fertilizer that is made in Jadam farming. So let's zoom in. So this is JLF, Jadam liquid fertilizer. What this is it is plant material that has been broken down in an anaerobic, that is oxygen-free environment, by many of the microbes that we can find in leaf mold compost. So basically, we add a bunch of plant clippings to this bucket, we top it up with dechlorinated water, and then we add a handful of leaf mold compost. And in about 3 months, we have liquid fertilizer that we just produce for free. So we started this on January 18th, so last month. So come mid-April, we're going to be able to use this to fertilize all the crops in our garden. And we just made this with plants that we collected in the area and leaf mold compost. That's it, and water. And this fertilizer is going to be a little bit less potent than your standard liquid organic fertilizer, such as fish emulsion, maybe about 1/10 as potent. So not super potent, but you can make it for free very easily. It also contains a number of beneficial microbes. So it does smell when you make it, and you can use this process to decompose anything. So all you need is some kind of organic material that is your nutrient source. In this case, just plants we trimmed around the area. You can use food waste. You can even use human excreta. You can use the forbidden items for compost, to put in compost, like meats, cheeses, oils. You can put them in this bucket with a handful of leaf mold compost and water, let it sit for 3 to 6 months, and then you have liquid fertilizer that you dilute typically 30 to 300 times, depending on the strength of the brew and how your plants are responding to it. So yeah, we use leaf mold compost as an inoculant for this liquid fertilizer preparation right here. And we can also use leaf mold compost as a source of microbes, to propagate microbes, to make a microbial solution we can add to our soil, to get that dandelion growing out of the pavement effect, to introduce that microbes that are the same microbes that are cycling those nutrients into that dandelion so that it can grow it out of the crack in the pavement. This is farming with microbes, folks. So this is essentially a way of stimulating the reproduction of these microbes that are found in a leaf mold compost, so that we can then apply them as a liquid soil amendment to boost the microbial populations of our soil. So that's what this is. That's what Jadam microorganism solution, or JMS, is. So I'll show you guys the process right now. So again, we just need a bucket, and we need dechlorinated water. So let's start filling this up with the dechlorinated water, please. And we need, and this is for a 5-gallon recipe, we need 15 grams of sea salt for our minerals. So I'm going to add the sea salt to the bucket. We'll begin filling up the water.
How high do you want it?
About to there. So why don't we put that on, so I can continue explaining, why don't we put that on soaker and leave it. Yeah, and so we'll leave it in the water. Do you mind holding that, please?
Yeah.
So, everything that is alive has to eat, and that includes microbes. So, the microbes are present in our leaf mold compost, and the material is already decomposed. So, the microbes are mostly dormant. In order to wake them up, we need to give them a food source. And so, after lots of experimentation, it was found that potato starch makes the best food source for the kinds of microbes found in leaf mold compost. And this is because potato starch, as it is decomposed by those microbes, does not really change the pH of the water that much. And it allows the pH of the water to sort of zero in to 6.5, which is perfect for our crops. So we're going to use 3 potatoes. Just organic russet potatoes. Any potatoes work as long as they're organic. And we just cook them in the microwave for 5 minutes to soften them up. And what we have is this one paint strainer here with a rock at the bottom to weigh it down. So that's a little bit, that's probably good. So we have our potatoes, right? And actually we need to weigh them out first. We need to see how much these potatoes weigh, because we want equal weight of potatoes to leaf mold compost. So I'm just going to put this lid back on. I have a scale right here. And we're going to weigh it. Let's weigh it in grams. So that is 418 grams of potato. We'll call it 420 grams. So we know we have 420 grams of potato. And so now we're going to put them in a bag, in a paint strainer, and we're going to massage the potatoes and break them up to release all that starch into the water. We're going to release all that starch into the water so that it is suspended and or dissolved in the water column to provide a food source for all of these microbes and fungi inside of the leaf mold compost. So break it up as best you can. We don't want there to be any big chunks. I found that if there are a couple small chunks, it's okay. But we want to release as much of that starch as possible into the water. Okay, let's see. Still got some big chunks. Yeah, 5 minutes is what is recommended normally for microwaving potatoes, but I'm thinking maybe a little bit longer next time, like 6 minutes.
Okay.
Yeah, it's all good. You know, I usually boil them when I make this for like 30 minutes. But I think microwaving is easier. I didn't realize you could just like microwave them, and that's fine for this. I knew you could microwave potatoes, but I didn't realize it was good for this. I mean, why wouldn't it be? I don't know. So we're going to keep breaking this up. So, will one of you please mix up that leaf mold really well and weigh out 420 grams? So yes, we already have our sea salt dissolved in the water.
You want to get him in a container so I can measure?
And that is our source of minerals, once again. And a lot of the minerals that you can find in sea salt are important enzyme cofactors and are therefore required for the microbes to actually get their molecular machinery to work, and they're not really present in sufficient quantities for the microbes in potatoes alone. But so what we're going to do with this stuff is we're going to use it in the bed that is right beside us, and all the other beds really, but especially this bed that is right beside us, because on Friday we are going to be harvesting all the sunchokes that we've allowed to overwinter in the bed. Because we grew sunchokes here last year, that is Jerusalem artichokes. And apparently the flavor, you can improve the flavor by allowing them to overwinter in the soil. Yeah, we're able to keep massaging these, breaking them up a bit more, releasing all those starches into the water, get all that food for the microbes. And as you can see, this is why it's called Jadam Ultra Low Cost Agriculture, because you can make this extremely potent microbial solution better than any bug in a jug product you can buy at a store for like dollars, for a couple dollars. And you can even grow most of the ingredients. And like sea salt is dirt cheap, potatoes are dirt cheap, you can grow potatoes. And so like this system was devised to reduce, originally to help farmers reduce their input costs significantly. In fact, like all these methods that are used in this, it's an open source methodology. So that way, like, it's not copyrighted. All this technique is not copyrighted. Like anybody can do it, you know, without there being any kind of legal restrictions.
Again?
420 grams. So this is open source. This is an open source farming methodology, and the idea is, the idea behind that is so that it's easy for more farmers to adopt it without having to invest in more products, essentially. And it is saving farmers a lot of money, and it is helping them increase their yields and produce better quality fruits and vegetables, which is awesome. So there is a book. You can buy it online for about $40. And you don't need the book. There are instructional videos on how to make this stuff all over YouTube. You could just go on YouTube and learn like everything there is to know about this farming methodology, pretty much. At least the basics. There are also recipes for plant-based pesticides within the methodology, but like this is the stuff that I use. I've been using it for probably about 6 months. I really like it, so I figured we'd try it here at the Wellness Garden. Especially since we are going to be performing a very high disturbance activity on this soil bed that is next to us. So I think that's as good as it's going to get right now. And the rock is just to weigh it down. And this is an anaerobic product as well. But it mostly employs the fermentation of these carbohydrates, so it produces a very distinctive odor. It's not a bad odor at all, it's a good odor. It smells a lot like kombucha when it's done, and you'll know when it's done, and I'll explain what it looks like when it's done. I feel like this could be broken down a bit more, actually. I'm gonna use the rock as leverage. And I'll explain what to do with this after it's done and what it looks like. So what we want to do now is tie the paint strainer onto this bamboo stake. And we want to suspend it in the center. We want it suspended in the center. Actually, need to cut this stake. Oh, it doesn't matter. We want to suspend it in the center because the heat generated by the microbes as they break down the starch, the very small amount of heat, is actually going to generate. It'll allow for the generation of vortex flow, and this allows for a very, very gentle, gradual mixing of the solution as it brews. And this is what we want. We don't want to aerate it like a compost tea or anything like that. Because this is an anaerobic process. And so, what you're brewing here is pretty much some of the toughest microbes around. A lot of these so-called facultative anaerobes like lactic acid bacteria, certain yeasts, streptomyces, those kinds of things, are some of are really important in establishing soil structure in a heavily degraded or new soil. So this stuff is best to apply when you're just starting out your garden, but you can't apply it every season. So I oftentimes like to apply it every time before I plant, and it really helps soften up the soil and improve the structure deep down, and it also helps to stimulate the growth of roots quite a bit, actually. And those are the immediate effects you'll see. You'll see your soil start to become a lot softer, a lot more friable. It will boost it will enhance the root growth of new transplants, and you might actually see a ton of mycelium develop on your soil surface after applying this. That has happened before. But so yeah, we're going to suspend that one in the center, and Joe and Nelly are almost done weighing out 420 grams of leaf mold compost. And then all we have to do is cover it after that and leave it right next to where we're going to be using it, and that's it. We leave it for anywhere from 24 to 72 hours depending on the temperature. I'm guessing it's going to be about 48 hours because it's going to be pretty warm but not too warm. Usually it's 48 to 72 hours, I'd say. And when it's done, you will see a lot of bubbles, and it'll have that sort of like kombucha, sauerkraut, yogurt smell to it. It's like kind of sour, kind of sweet, kind of cheesy smell. And you'll see you'll either see clusters of bubbles forming around the paint strainers and just around the surface of the water, or you will see like even a ring of bubbles, or like 1 or 2 rings of bubbles. And so when you see those bubbles reach their peak, that's when you want to use it. You have a 12-hour window to use it. And if you see the bubbles start to collapse, that means that the microbes have consumed all of the starch and they're starting to die. And after it has gone bad, it is useful essentially as the other fertilizer preparation, as the JLF, but it is no longer is no longer useful as a microbial inoculant for your soil, as like a soil probiotic. When I say microbial inoculant, that's all it means. Soil probiotic. You're getting the microbes in your soil established. That will help you grow your plants. All right, so we have that. So when you guys are done, we'll get the leaf mold. Any questions so far? Again, this is very easy to do. If you don't have leaf mold compost, you can go collect wild leaf mold soil. But I recommend using leaf mold compost. So if you have any leaves left over from the fall, start one of these now. Start a leaf mold compost now. Do you have enough?
I think we're going to adjust enough.
It doesn't have to be exact.
Yeah. So that's 220.
220. So we'll start putting this in. And the rocks are just to weigh it down. But like, I'm in general a big fan of simple, low-cost gardening. I don't like to overcomplicate things by buying and using all these NPKs and CAs and MGs and all that stuff, you know, all those fertilizers. It's very easy to create nutritional imbalances in your soil by overusing these things. And you have to like be very, you can use them, they do work, but you have to be very diligent about using them correctly. And I find that this is a lot simpler. Just the combination of using preparations such as this to encourage life in your soil, and following the soil health principles.
Okay, this is ready for you when you're ready.
The most important of which is mulching. And as we've talked about a lot through chopping and dropping. Okay, this is ready?
Yep.
So yeah, once we get this in, same thing. We're just going to massage it. Just dump it in. We're just going to massage it gently to release those microbes into the water. And I hope, and like if this fails, I know that the filters need to be replaced. On the hoses, the hose filters, because the hose filters that we have remove the chlorine from the water. But if it fails, then I know we have to put on a new filter. So this will be good to know.
Make them a little extra.
Perfect. Yeah, we'll just sprinkle that somewhere. So then I'm just going to tie this off once again. Tie it off. Give it a nice little massaging. And we're going to check on this in 2 days. And when it's done, I'll try and get a picture up on our Instagram story of what it looks like. You'll know when it's done. It's very distinctive. you'll see lots and lots of bubbles. And those bubbles are produced by the microorganisms, and you'll recognize the smell. It's a very distinctive smell, you can never forget it. Anyways, that's it. So what we're going to do now is we're going to cover it up with the lid and move it into a somewhat sunny location. Not too sunny, we don't want to cook it, but a location that is essentially has the same conditions as where we're going to use it. Because think of it this way, with this method, we are collecting local microbes. We're collecting microbes from our environment and then propagating them in the environment where we want to use them. That's essentially what we're doing here. And by doing this, we will then add a population of microorganisms to our soil that are adapted to our conditions. And they will persist in our soil and reproduce in our soil and stay there. That's what we want. And we can continue boosting them by using this, by making and using this stuff multiple times. But after a certain point, I'd say you probably don't even have to use it anymore. So, yeah, that's it. That is a way of utilizing your leaf mold compost after you wait a whole year to make it. This is Jadam Microbe Solution JMS. We're going to check it again in 2 days and it should be done. And we'll be able to use it right here after we harvest the sunchokes, which again is a very high disturbance activity, so we're going to want to replenish the microbes in this soil. And we'll use it throughout the garden as well. It's looking great. Garden's looking awesome. So it is time for us to go. We actually have a meeting, but thank you everybody. So please make sure to follow us on Instagram if you haven't already, and keep up to date on our posts, and also check out the Ask a Master Gardener feature on our website if you have further questions. Thank you very much for joining us this week, and we will see you guys next week. Have a good one.